Oh man, this is we're live. This is the first time I've used StreamYard or hosted using StreamYard, so pretty pretty nervous about it.
Congratulations, Tate.
Wow, you sound so sincere, Jonathan.
You're how many subscribers you up to now? 1,000 and
1,290.
good, man. You're chugging along. Nice.
Chugging along.
Streams of yours.
So that's pretty good. It's not too bad. Chugging along.
Why
On
are
the
you gonna
subscriber train.
monetize yet?
I had to fix something on my YouTube before I can get monetized, so we can't get monetized till February 25th. So it's pretty dumb. And man, I wish I was monetized because the Bluff Creek Part 2, the Return to Bluff Creek, yeah, it's got like 16,000 views. So that's a bummer, but it is. I guess it is what it is. You know, can't really do anything about it. We got Glenn Dwarf in the chat. Glenn Dwarf. I'm so sorry, Glenn Brown Dwarf. I messed his name up so bad.
And he was with us up in Bluff Creek. He's in SABE too. He's in what, 2 or 3 episodes?
You know what? I should get Glenn on this live. If Glenn, let me know if you want to join the live here, buddy. We got some good talks in Bluff Creek. He brought like a whole thing of different like fruits and vegetables and stuff that he just.
Yeah. Well, we all brought like our little collection of food to share amongst ourselves and for us, and he showed up with this like huge big old wrap thing of all these vegetables, right? And we went on that hike. This was a hike way up in the mountains, up down near No-Go Valley, and we get to this little lake. We hike back. We're all exhausted, and he busts out this gigantic, smorgasbord of like fruits and vegetables and all this stuff. And he cooked them over the fire for us. He got down that day. We ate good. We were so full. All of us were just so full. I remember.
Didn't we have like a really bad? Was it like what kind of whiskey or whatever Ron brought? It was like some kind of fruity drink.
Was it some strawberry alcoholic beverage that had like a really high alcohol percentage that after like a couple of the swigging it, you didn't even know what the heck you were drinking anymore. But
yeah,
sounds better than Ron's 3 cans of beans.
I did. I had to get Ron. I almost got him to eat 3 cans of beans, but he only ended up eating 2. So
these are the serious things that us citizen scientists do on our Bigfoot expedition.
It's what goes on behind the camera.
Overload of fiber.
So good. So for people who don't know, I'm Tate Hieronymus. I'm with the Bluff Creek Project, and I started the YouTube series Sasquatch, a search for SABE. And then why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I guess I'll go next. My name is Jonathan Easley. I run a page called Western Bigfoot Exploration here on YouTube as well. And I've been on lots of adventures with Tate. I guess that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, my name is Ontario. I have the Midwest Bigfoot page on Instagram, and I am with the BFRO and handle all the Midwest states as well as Maine and majority of the Canadian provinces.
Awesome.
She handles everything outside California, Oregon.
Wait, me?
And I don't know.
Ontario.
Ontario, yeah. So many.
Yeah, popping everywhere.
Reports.
Yeah. My name is Ontario. I researched the moon.
The moon.
Good grief. What was I? So, okay, obviously the title of the show is Beyond SABE. And there is one person we are missing from, this live. So I have a little video if it plays. We're gonna play it in his honor, and this is for Ron. So we'll go ahead and play that.
He's not dead like Tate's making him seem like.
And I think that, we were there for the busiest month of the year. July is when everybody wants to hit the water and beat off the summer heat. So that's That makes sense, but it was a little bit overwhelming just seeing.
I thought he was laughing at the fire thing beeping.
No. That was what Ron said.
I know. Hey,
Yeah, we're all still like 10 years
I
old.
was just trying to keep the composure. I knew I was.
I'm sorry. I started laughing because Jonathan was laughing.
Why would you say it like that? It's a weird way to say it. But anyway.
Wait, weird way to say what? What Ron said.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about,
Glenn, for emphasis, made sure to spell it out for us. Yeah.
It was me. It was shocking.
Oh my god. I swear, when we did that live, and that was actually for the first 4 episodes we filmed of the SABE series, and yeah, that was pretty good stuff. And that was I think that really set the tone for everything, like the whole series in general. I mean, what do you think, Jonathan?
No, yeah, that was when you were like brainstorming your idea and how to go about your content on YouTube, with all the stuff that you're doing. And I remember you kind of chimed in on that word and what it meant and how you liked it. It was right around then when you created that. But I thought it's a great idea and it's a really cool series. It's just, Bigfoot instead of the Bigfoot Adventures with Tate. I like Sasquatch, SABE. That sounds cool.
Well, and
Yeah.
doesn't SABE mean truth or honesty or something, Tate? I know you had been talking about that at one point, which is partially why you picked it.
Yeah, no, it represents honesty. I can't remember the tribe. There's among what's called the 7 teachings, I think in Manitoba, Canada. There's different animals, and each animal represents a different attribute. One can represent strength or courage, but Bigfoot or SABE, it represents honesty. And I was I want to have Bigfoot in the name, but I wanted to also have a double meaning where it's I'm doing something that's truthful, nothing's staged or faked.
Right.
But nobody knew what nobody knew what SABE meant, and so I think everybody was you should just put Sasquatch or something in there, and I was Sasquatch, a search for SABE. So that's how that came about. It's not too bad.
Oh, that's cool. It's definitely unique.
Yeah, we're gonna make SABE great again.
Little hat, yeah.
So I'm gonna try and play a clip. I was playing it earlier, and it was kind of acting up a little bit. So hopefully this plays. If not, I'm sorry. So let's see. Let's try and go for it.
It's been a while since I heard that.
I know.
That was cool.
Boulder after boulder, bushwhacking and one stream crossing after another. The culmination of a constant battle of the elements is starting to fatigue the team, and each step that is taken is another step towards an emergency situation.
So the coolest thing just happened. I woke up to start the fire, right? And I get out of the car, and the cars are right there. And right here was a doe just standing right there. And it walks up to me within 5 feet of me. That was really cool.
Well, we got beer and...
Oh, I'm so annoyed. It stopped. It's been stopping there. But that line Ron said, and that was the last clip from the video. But Ron was we got beer, whiskey, and a dream.
And that's when you guys are like getting poured on in a hurricane.
Yeah, there was a hurricane we were camping right in the middle of. And you remember the spot you met me, Jonathan, before we went up to my thermal site?
Yeah.
You guys have an earthquake at the same time
Yeah, we had an earthquake.
Oh,
too.
in
But
the hurricane. Yeah.
The spot where we were camping at is where you met me at, and we camped and stayed up all night drinking beer.
Oh yeah.
It was that
we
same
met like
camp.
at 1 a.m, and I met you like, was it 10:30 or was it 1 a.m. when we
Dude,
met?
it was you got off work late, and then you drove from where you were at to me, and you didn't get there till like 1. And then we didn't get to the spot till, just the spot to camp for the night until like 2 in the morning, 2:30, because the road was so bad.
We ended up staying up all night just drinking beer, and
I'm like,
I was peeking over the mountain.
we were so excited because you got there and you got there and like we were so excited to like be camping and stuff. You got a little surprise.
Yeah, it's my wife's account, but that's Sophia, my daughter. Where she is.
Oh, that's funny.
But, yeah.
It's me, Sophia. But no, we were like just super excited to be out camping and everything, and I was like, "Hey, you want a beer?" And you're like, "Yeah." And then 1 beer turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4, turned into the sun coming up.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was pretty good. But Uncle Bones too says mouth pop, which is the Idaho knock that we were hearing, which sounds like your mouth pop.
Okay, like before when you and I met, we kind of exchanged like weird stories that we've told each other, and one of my weird stories was my first night in the Sierra Nevadas at this particular spot, and I started hearing these mouth like pops all around my tent. I'd wake up, I'd look, there's nothing there, I'd go back to sleep. It happened over and over and over, and it was like this popping weird sound, but there was almost more to it. So anytime it's like weird how I keep hearing other people reference these same sounds, exact sounds, like this Daryl Collier, who works with the NAWAC in Oklahoma, talks about these mouth pops or throat clucks, or anyway, it's that same sound. And when we heard it in Idaho, it just sounded like a loud knock. It was from very far away. First of all, that sound, you can't tell how close or far it is when you hear it on audio like this, but it was really far away, maybe, I don't know, 200-300 yards, just guessing. I don't know if you agree with that.
I would say something like that.
Just a rough guess. Yeah, because we did walk down that far. We all packed up and like walked out on the road to see what did that, right?
Well, and, yeah, we did, but
we ended up walking almost a mile. But
yeah, that spot wasn't initially the spot we were going to camp at. We were going to go to another spot, but I think gas issue for me. I was like, hey, let's find this spot. So, Upper Canada Sasquatch.
Patterson Gimlin. It's in one of the Patterson Gimlin casts. That's Patty's cast.
It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool track. But no, the spot, I think I was looking around Google Maps and I was like, hey, let's just go to this spot. And we picked it randomly. Just kind of looking at different things. It looked like a good spot. We didn't think anything was going to happen, and we had camp set up. And it wasn't until like we were talking around the fire that we ended up hearing that knock. We were like in the middle of like talking, and I was like, "Hey, Jonathan, did you hear that?" Something like that happened.
Yeah, I was like yapping. I was blah 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 blah, and you went, hold on, shh, because you said you thought you heard something out behind me, and right when you did that, we hear that big pop sound from down the way. So that was just a weird, I don't know, coincidence that you heard something far off behind me. You told me to be quiet, and then that went off. So that was pretty weird. A weird coincidence.
And we gotta thank Ron, because he was the one that had the recorder that actually recorded it. None of us were recording video or anything like that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, really weird. I mean, could it be something natural in the woods, of course, but it's just one of those things you don't know what it is. We have no idea. I don't know what makes loud knocking sounds like that in the middle of the night. And there was nothing else going on. Zero sounds. It was just dead silent the entire night.
Yeah, it was pretty quiet. Freaking horseflies, they were annoying too.
Yeah, I remember Ron said we had the horse flies like all over us, and then all of a sudden they stopped, and within like 30 seconds it was like mosquitoes. Like he said, the horse flies clocked out and the mosquitoes clocked in.
Dude, honestly, I'll take horseflies over mosquitoes though any day.
I would also, yeah.
Yes, Ontario knows. Like, I'll tell you what, is like, oh my lord, horseflies are really annoying, and the bite hurts. But you know what? That's nothing like jeans and a long sleeve T-shirt can't fix.
Well, my gosh, when I was up in Minnesota doing that BROF expedition, I mean, I had like pants on, long sleeves, a mosquito net on my head, and I was down casting and print, and the mosquitoes were biting through my pants. And when I got back to my car to look at my legs, I counted like 20 some bites on just one leg, and there was like 16 on the other. My knees were swelling up. And my legs were like pink from calamine the entire rest of the trip. Those mosquitoes will I had to put on my rain gear to keep them from being able to get through my clothes. They're insane.
That's awful.
Hate mosquitoes
Yeah, it was.
so much. Mosquitoes are literally the worst thing ever.
They are.
And then Florida, camping in Florida during the summer, oh my god.
I bet that's brutal, yeah.
Even in the wintertime.
Well, I'm sure with it being a rainy season too in the summer that there's just standing water with swamps and
Well, it's just so humid out here. But even
yeah.
I guess the humidity doesn't really play that big of a factor because in Bluff Creek, they're everywhere too. So I mean, it's just one of those things you have to deal with. I guess you learn how to prepare for it each time you go out. What works, what doesn't, and you know what? I don't care if it's
enough times to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care if it's hot either. I'll wear like pants. That's just less surface area for me to get bit on.
Yeah.
At that point. So, I mean, kudos to people who can wear shorts and flip flops. So I just can't do it.
Not me.
It's not for me. But so I mean, let's talk about some other episodes we did in the SABE series. And Ontario, if you have any questions or anybody in the chat has any questions about that, feel free to ask them. But I guess we can just start in chronological order. The first episode I actually filmed was the Bluff Creek one, but the first episode that I released was the Iowa one with me and Jeremiah. And we did hear some stuff, and we were there 2 nights. The first night we didn't really hear anything. The second night we did hear what sounds like a tree either pushed or fell over. And we heard knocks
too. Yeah, I remember you talking about the knock.
Yeah, there was knocks, and that's actually in the episode that you can go and listen to. Jeremiah recorded that, and there was like a zipper sound,
that's not a one-off, right? I mean, that's something that people get all over the place. I mean, it's something I've heard in person, in Dubuque, people from all over the country talk about the zipper and mimicry in general, which I know will play a part later on when we talk about the second Iowa episode.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think Jeremiah was thinking this thing was unzipping its tent.
No,
but
it's just, I think they hang around and are listening to some of the sounds going on around them. And,
yeah,
it's just a curiosity and intelligence thing to try to mimic those sounds.
Yeah, but there's no way it was Jeremiah because where his tent was, my car was in between the audio recorder and his tent, and his audio recorder was a good ways away.
Well, and it was loud.
And it was loud. It sounded like a zipper right by the audio recorder.
100%, yeah.
I know, was it Chris Spencer? He said he's heard that before, and some other people.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the guy from Alaska? Larry Beans Baxter told Jeremiah that he has that, I think, recorded as well. It's like a random zipper sound while everyone's sleeping, like a tent zipping, but everyone says it wasn't them.
Yeah, I think they're hanging around and listening and are hearing us going in and out of our tent, and probably just for some entertainment value, try to make those same sounds. Which comes up a lot with car door sounds as well.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't heard it personally, but I know Rowdy has told me, like him and Bart, I think one time, and even Robert, they were up at was it Onion Lake, Jonathan, and they said they've heard that car door slam before. But also at Onion Lake, they've heard that real like a kind of like a mechanical kind of humming noise too.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, he was telling me about that once.
I haven't heard of that one.
I wondered. I was questioning if it was one of those cicada bugs.
But there's no cicadas up there.
It was. He said it wasn't.
There's no cicadas in Bluff Creek, is there?
It was. I think I heard him last time I was there. I believe.
What?
I
Weird.
don't know. I went from there that one year to Idaho and up in the mountains there, like a week after, and sometimes it gets mixed up. But I don't know. There's lots of weird sounds that people can't identify, and a lot of different people have recorded them now, from the Olympic project to, Robert's had a flute playing. So many weird sounds, man, that I have no idea what they are.
I had to put somebody in timeout because they're annoying me in the chat. I am a moderator. I do see the chat people, so oh man. But anyway, no, yeah, you kind of do get your days mixed up, like after you've been traveling so much from up there, kind of going in between and out and stuff, like your days kind of mix. So it's kind of like, oh man, was it there? But, dude, I swear there's no I've never heard cicadas up in Bluff Creek ever.
I'm trying to remember, but I just remember Robert did go to like Palm Springs and thought it was like the weirdest sounding bug ever.
No, this was Twin Lake, or not Twin Lakes. This was Onion Lake, that mechanical humming noise.
No, I know. But all I'm saying is he knows what they sound like, but I don't know if he discovered that after or before.
Oh, okay.
He can compare it. Like he's heard cicadas, I know he has, and then he's heard this mechanical buzzing sound. So
I see. Yeah. No, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, man, it's just one of those things. It's like it just adds to the mystery in the Bluff Creek area. And then speaking of Bluff Creek, that's the second episode that was out. So episode 2 was Bluff Creek. I think it was like an hour and 30 minutes long or something like that. I can't. And this is kind of like the follow up to my. This series, I guess, was like a follow up to my documentary, Uncovering the Truth of Sasquatch, that we were all with Alex and Eli, that we took them up there when they did the Beyond the Trail Bigfoot at Bluff Creek. But it seemed like this year we weren't getting as much activity as we did, in 2021 with Alex and Eli. But we did find a lot of physical evidence, like possible tracks. That one hair that Damon ended up finding. And then, what do you think about the whole experience doing that, Jerem or Jonathan?
Man, it was cool because that one year was like, it's like if we didn't document all that stuff, which we did a good job between all of us documenting all that weird activity we had. If we didn't document it all, man, it'd be a heck of a tall tale. Like this happened and that happened, and then after that we got back to camp and this happened. It sounds like one of those unbelievable stories. So it was cool to have Alex and Eli there. Their cameras captured it all. And then we went back and we had like nothing. It was like the quietest weekend, right? And
it really was.
Yeah, it was really quiet. But as far as what we were looking, we had that stuff happen on the Go Road. And we did hear something really odd. And we did. So that was the thing with that trip. We didn't hear or record any like vocalizations or anything that time. But what happened was we found a bunch of stuff, which was hair that we collected off of different points on different trees that we found was maybe a little bit suspicious looking. And then we also found footprints. We made casts, and maybe the cast didn't look that great, but in the ground, I like to think those footprints looked pretty good. The spacing, the distance, and it was weird where they came from, kind of out of the ridge line, out of the ridge, right up onto the side of the Go Road, and just walked along. And that's when we casted.
Well, we were hearing that we were doing calls. It was me and Stevie and Ron. We were doing some calls off this little off the road, kind of looking down over the ridge there, and we were hearing something. It sounded like a whoop. And I know we were talking to Kip's wife about it the next day, and she thinks it might have been a phalange. How do you say that word?
I don't know. It's more fun listening to you butcher
I
it
think
though.
it was flagellated.
Flagellated? Yeah. Flagellated owl.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was. But I mean, even if that was an owl, you can't discredit the possible tracks that we found. And the reason I think they might have been possible tracks is because remember that there was that tree break we found too. I don't know if I showed you that tree break.
No, yeah, it was yeah. It came right out where that trackway was, like right behind it.
Yeah. And I was like, it's pretty fresh, and where this is at, I don't think anybody was doing it. And it wasn't like a saw. Somebody sawed it halfway and then, split open. It looked like something did break it apart. Either if it was a bear, I don't know what did it, but the tracks, I think we kind of saw that when we were walking down the road, and then we were like, let's go check these out on the way back. And we were looking at them more, and then we showed you and Damon and stuff. And I mean, what did you really think of those tracks?
Well, it was cool because you guys, I remember it was me and Damon. Me and Damon had gone out, and it was you and Ron and Stevie that went the opposite direction. So you guys were quite a ways from us, right? And then you told us, guys, we were driving to you guys on the Jeep. You guys said, guys, cut the engine, stop everything. We think we're hearing something. And we left you guys there, and you guys heard what you heard. You think it was maybe an owl. But when we met up with you too at the footprints, we were still hearing it, right? And I don't know if it was an owl or not, but then you showed me the trackway, the big old branch break, and the trackway that came out of something. It came out of a game trail for sure, because there were also bear prints that went the opposite way. So you had these bear prints that you could see, these two little ones. It was in these wet pine needles because it had been raining like all week. So you could see these, two small ones and then two big ones. So it was a bear trackway. And then going the opposite way, you had these big old, what do you think? Were they 13, between 13, 15 inches, something like that?
I think maybe smaller, like 12, 13 inches. 14 to like 12 inches.
12 to 14.
If I had to guess.
And yeah, it would look like a bipedal trackway that went right there. And we had the bear one for comparison right there. So I don't know, very interesting.
None of us had plaster except for Damon, because Damon went back and casted them the next day. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I have pictures of those.
Yeah, he went back to cast them. And so those were kind of interesting. And I think that's actually in the episode too. But what's also in the episode, I didn't actually get Damon doing it, but we went to Laird Meadow a couple times, and we were looking for hair samples, because there was like some trees that had, potential like tree breaks or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there was some sap on some of the trees, but there was some hair pretty high up. And I know Ron collected like a bunch of hair samples, and then Damon just ended up pulling one off the tree.
Yeah. Yeah. We were like trying to properly collect them, but I mean, we didn't know that like running DNA on it would cost, thousands and thousands of dollars, but we collected it properly to not contaminate it and stuff. And Damon just kind of walked by, and he reached way up above where Ron was grabbing, and he pulls off this one long hair. And that was a hair that ended up having all the characteristics of what they call the Sasquatch hair,
well, didn't you guys bring that to Cliff's Museum?
Yeah, we ended up
Have a look at that.
We ended up taking it to because we were going to Washington for that trip, but we were like, you know what? Let's take this to Cliff's Museum and see if he can look at it for us. And so we ended up taking it up there, and Cliff looked at it for us. Ours wasn't anything. It ended up turning it to be bear. And so, but Damon was there, I think, the day before us.
No, he was there the day after.
The day after. Okay, yeah, that's right. Because we went there.
He showed us why it's bear hair, and how it's squiggly and those characteristics. And he showed us comparisons, and we went on our way. And then the next day, Damon showed up with that giant long hair that he found. And
yeah, and then we ended up going. You weren't there, but Ron and Stevie and I ended up going back there. or at least Ron and I did, going back there to get some more hairs looked at. And one looked more promising than the other, but it was kind of disappointing, but something that we didn't, I didn't do was a Oregon episode. And so kind of some more behind the scenes stuff, I guess. We were in Oregon. How many days? We were there a couple of days, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, we spent like 2 or 3 days there. I just remember how exhausted everybody was because we had quite the adventure in Bluff Creek. Like we just a lot of stuff happened in Bluff Creek.
Dude, it was
to someone's car completely breaking down and getting all messed up, and
dude, Ron's car
from Bluff Creek to Oregon.
Yeah, in Bluff Creek, Ron's car got messed up. Like it went bye-bye. And so he ended up riding with me up to Oregon that trip. And we were there for a couple of days, and it was pretty fun. We went squatching around a few places that we knew were pretty good areas. We went up to the Timberline Lodge here, which is the background behind Jonathan. It's like this picture here.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty cool bar there, actually. And I bought us a round of whiskeys.
That was a great time, yeah.
It was so much fun, but sadly, Jonathan had to leave us for a week because he wasn't able to go with us to Washington, which leads me to the was it now the third episode in the series, the Washington episode, which I think you and Jonathan, and I think even Ontario, most people have said that's their favorite one, or like that's at least the one that's more well written and fleshed out, I guess, as an episode. What do you think, Jonathan?
It's like really polished.
That's my favorite for sure.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't know. I'm biased because I like the Bluff Creek ones because it reminds me so much of all the good times. But the Bumping Lake one was really neat. It was really well polished. I thought the interviews were really good. You talked to a couple guys that had a lot of knowledge about that area and frequent that area and had recordings of stuff. And, you guys did a good job on that one.
Yeah, I really liked it. And it was fun to get out there. That was my first time up there. And then we had more vehicle mishaps because Ron and I, we were going to go like kayaking on the lake. And so I had my kayak in my car. It's like an inflatable kayak, so I didn't really have to worry about it. And then Ron didn't really want to strap his kayak on his car. I suggested we just put it in the back of my truck, but I had like a shell, and there's like a glass window on it. And I was backing up and just not pay attention, and I ran into a tree, and the window hit a tree and shattered.
Was this under the influence?
Yeah. No, I wasn't under the influence. I was later when we were on the water, but not then. But it was really annoying that my window went bye too. So just one of those things. But nothing really did happen there. There was a few cool places that I want to go back and check out sometime again. But as my first time being there, it's a squatchy area. But at the same time, you wonder why a place like this is so good when there's so many people. It's like a national park. You drive in through like a campground and everything, and then there's like a dirt road. Like unless you have a pretty good car note, you're not really going to go through. But still, you're like, how is there so many good Bigfoot reports here? Not more of them coming out of this area, for given how many people are coming here.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of heard from other people that it can be a bit of a circus near Bumping Lake, that you want to go up in the upper camps or something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like you drive to a paved road, then it ends, and you take this dirt road and it goes to these different camps, and these places are pretty cool. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it's definitely worth investigating. And I was looking on Google Maps after the trip, and after the fact, and I was seeing this really cool lake that you have to drive all the way up, like a lot further up the mountain to get to. And I was like, man, I want to go to that spot because it looks more isolated. It's above everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this spot looks good. So I do have plans to return to Bumping Lake, hopefully.
Yeah, this is a cool place with a lot of stories from a lot of people we know.
Dude, heck yeah. So, and then leading on to Idaho, this is your neck of the woods now because you used to live in Southern California, Jonathan, but now you live in Idaho.
Correct, just like everybody else here.
So we went up to Idaho, and you were showing us a couple of spots. You had one spot in mind, and then I think we mentioned earlier in the episode or the live here that I was like kind of low on gas money.
There's a certain spot where it's around the lake, and Damon actually kind of tipped me off to it. He has this picture of this small trackway or small track that he sent me a picture of out there, and he thought it was really interesting. And not just that, but there's a lot of BFRO reports that came from this particular area as well. And I had spoken to people that had some weird things happen there in that area. So I thought, man, that'd be a great place for us to go. But we ended up going about halfway there and setting up in a kind of cool spot, though. I kind of liked it. It was kind of on a ridge, right? And there was some like makeshift trail behind the camp. And it was right next to the road. So we were walking the roads at night.
Dude, it was cool. And there's a funny story about that spot later, too, that we'll get into. But yeah, that's where we mentioned I think you knew of the spot already, but I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. And so when I was like trying to figure out gas situations and distances, I was looking on Google Maps and I was like, hey, this spot looks good. And then we ended up going to that spot that you kind of knew about. Yeah. And I had no idea. And lo and behold, we ended up getting that knock that I kind of showed earlier in the live. And that was a cool area.
Right past camp, like right outside of camp at night, they were like the freshest bear tracks. Like if we had, I don't know, if I had plaster casts, I should have cast them just because they were like the cleanest looking bear tracks ever and like some soft sand. It was nice.
Dude, it's a sweet area. And then you had a really cool area that I really want to get back to. I don't want to say where it's at because I think you actively research it, but I think it's a better spot. And there's a nice creek that runs by. It almost kind of gave me like a little bit of like Bluff Creek vibes a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But we ended up getting to that spot. How long of a drive was it? It was like an hour and a half.
2 hours from Boise. And it was an hour and a half from the last spot we were.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking because we get to camp and we're getting everything set up and everything. And Jonathan, you're going through your car and you're like, dude, where's my therm?
Mind you, I had just purchased it. Like I just bought it and got it and took it to Bluff Creek and I was all happy about it and using it and stuff. And then I can't find it. And I emptied out my entire car, even the glove compartments and center consoles, remember? And I'm like, yeah, it's not here. So I was like, there's only one thing I can do. I was like, we had only made one stop. So I went back to that gas station. It wasn't there. I went all the way back to where we camped and I retraced my footsteps and I was actually kind of like tracking myself. Like, what was I doing? Where was I walking? And I'm looking and I'm like, oh, look, there's like a branch bent over. Then I see like some stomps right there. And then I was like, that's where I stomped. So I followed my own tracks. Boom, right there on the ground was my therm just sitting there. $600 thermal imager right there. Yeah. So I was so proud of myself that I tracked myself back to myself.
We were all freaking out.
I drove back, dude. I was so happy.
We were so freaking out. We were like, I guess not as much as you, but
I was freaking out.
We were thinking like, what took you? We were like, what's taking Jonathan so long? He should be back by now. And you get back and like, I found it. It was so good, but I unfortunately, I mean, it was such a good area, and we had these plans. But at that point, we've been on the road for I don't know how long, and we were like, at least me and Ron for sure were tired. So we didn't do any squatching that night, only because for a good cause. We had to get up at the crack of dawn and drive to Pocatello, and we visited Jeff Meldrum because we were going to get so we had two different opinions by Cliff and Connor at the museum at NABC. And then hey, let's get a third opinion. We're going to be in Idaho. I'll reach out to Meldrum, and I emailed him, and we ended up going to his lab at the university in Pocatello. It was Idaho State University, and talk about that, Jonathan. Like, for me, that was really cool. But
well, yeah, we had like we had a little envelope, and we had multiple hairs. And since what had happened was, we went to the NABC with Cliff, and he was like, "These are bear hair." Then Damon shows up with the hair he picked from the same tree, and it turns out to be that, one of the Sasquatch hair, I guess they call it. And then, so we still have these other hairs, lots of them. So we went back to Pocatello. It's like a 3-hour drive from Boise. And
dude, it's like way further than that.
3.5 hours, maybe.
No,
has to be.
I'm gonna look it up. Here, keep talking.
All right, Boise to Pocatello. Anyway, we went to his lab, and it's so cool because you walk in, and it's the lab that you've seen on all the documentaries, and you're like, oh, for Monster Quest, he sat right there, and and he's there, and I was like kind of expecting a certain type of just the way someone, I don't know, it wasn't the Jeff Meldrum I expected. He's 10 times nicer than I ever imagined, and he's not in some, there's no like authoritative way that he talks to you or anything like that. He's just like, after like 5 minutes, he was just like one of us, like just genuinely interested in everything that we experienced in Bluff Creek. And, we're like, we're going through this. He's pulling out these books from some Australian survey of all the known animal hairs. And it's some old book we're flipping through, and we're trying to identify all the hairs we have. Anyway, we had one hair that didn't really line up with anything, and it was a little weird looking. It had fragmented medulla, and he was explaining to us, maybe why it was a little bit strange. So I learned a lot of stuff. Like, I always wondered like the fine little aspects of the anatomy of a Bigfoot footprint with the mid-tarsal break, how it actually works. And he kind of showed me with the chimpanzee's foot how it's more of a trochlear type joint, that mid-tarsal break, and how it slides along, and it made just perfect sense. So I got to learn stuff firsthand from somebody with credentials I'll probably never learn from again.
Dude, it was that I wanted to get that book really bad too, and it's like that's a handy book to have for sure if you're really into like hair and now analyzing hair and everything.
It's a really rare book too.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what he said, because I was trying to look it up, I think, later, and I couldn't find it. But no, I looked it up. It's I looked up the distance between Boise and Pocatello. It's 3 hours and 26 minutes.
3 hours and a half, I said.
I did, dude. It just felt longer for some reason. I think it felt longer because we had to drive out of the spot we were camping at.
We had to drive 2 hours back to Boise, and then Boise to Pocatello. So we did 5 to 6 hours of driving.
That's why it took forever. Because 3 hours is not that bad. What time did we wake up? It was like 6,
just before the sun came up.
Yeah. Say what?
It's an early rise for you on big bunny trips.
I'm telling you, man. When I'm camping, I usually try and sleep in. But you know what's weird?
10:30 in Iowa.
You know what's weird though? Camping, my sleeping in when I'm out like in the field is about 10 though.
Yeah.
But like at home, I'll sleep till like 12.
That's nuts. I think John or Jeremiah was already at the campfire when I got up, probably around 8, and then Ron followed out, and we're just like chit chat.
Are you an early riser, Ontario, when you go camp?
What?
Are you an early riser, or you sleep in?
I am in general. Yeah. I'm usually up between 6 and 8 if I go camping.
Same
can't.
here. I'll sometimes like accidentally wake up at 5 and notice the sun's barely coming up, and there's been a couple times that I like to get out of my tent and I'll go walk. Just go walk the roads, and then I'll come back and get back in my tent, and everyone's still sleeping. But yeah, it's so cool to be the only one up and walking down these roads, knowing you're the only person out there. Who knows what you'll see?
Man, yeah. My thing is, I can only sleep so long. I try to sleep in, but like, then that's the only thing. It's like I don't want to wake up when everybody's asleep because it's boring.
Yeah.
Then I gotta then
personality.
then I gotta be the one who starts the fire again and gets everything ready. Like I want to selfishly sleep and let somebody
else is doing all the stuff. You're just gonna wake up and reap the benefits.
Yeah,
You just wake up to bacon and eggs and coffee, right?
You know what's so funny? I take advantage of my friends.
Yeah, that's hilarious. As your friend, that's hilarious, Tate. I'm laughing really hard at that one.
I take advantage of all my friends, nice and giving qualities. Like, hey, good morning. I got breakfast. I got coffee here. Help yourself.
And Tate's like, I have an entire ice chest full of Pabst, and I'm like, I'll take one. And that's like an even trade.
You know what? That does even out because I bring beer in droves. So I bring a bar. Let's just say this. You know how bars operate late and they don't open early? I'm like that, if that makes sense.
Astute.
It doesn't make any sense. Actually, that doesn't make any sense when I say it out loud. But no, man, like I'll wake up, there's like some breakfast cooking by Jonathan or something. Like, you want some eggs and bacon? I'm like, heck yeah. You know what? But when I'm camping, man, I don't do orange juice. I do a beer, eggs, and bacon. You gotta start the morning right.
Yeah.
I was the only one not drinking on that Iowa trip.
Wait, what?
He said, I think I was the only one not drinking on that Iowa trip. You guys were hilarious, though.
Oh my God. No, Luke wasn't. Luke was there and he wasn't drinking.
Oh. Yeah, that second. Was he there the first day?
He was there the second night.
Yeah.
But no, like, get there, and I was like, I got beer, guys. You want some beer? So it's pretty funny. What else? Okay, episode. So we had the Idaho one.
Idaho.
Then I filmed some new ones this year, and that was Return to Bluff Creek, Part 1 and Part 2. And Part 1 featured the crazy idea that I had brought to everybody about hiking up Bluff Creek from the Klamath River to the film site. And Jonathan, please be gentle, but tell me what you really feel about what happened.
It was gnarly, man. I don't regret it, but I mean, it was like we had a goal, and we started realizing that goal is completely impossible. We would have had to, what we thought would take us one day would have taken us 4 days, maybe 3 or 4 days. And who knows? Because nobody's been back there to this section up Bluff Creek. Like, we must have gone just a little bit, and we're like boulder and log hopping and in and out of the creek. I say creek, but it's a river because several creeks feed into it, and it's like waist deep, pulling you. The rocks are all slippery. We have full packs on. We were just exhausted. Like, there was no walking. It was all jumping over. You're always climbing on something, always climbing and climbing down something.
Oh,
it was
slows you down.
there was not one spot where we took like 10 steps straight. It was all like rugged terrain. And we got up to a certain point, and Kip was like, all right, we're camping here. And he was right, because you get tired, you start to get all clumsy. And we started to get clumsy, and everybody had cuts all over their legs. And, I think I was the only one that didn't fall into the creek. And we finally just emergency camped it, right?
Dude, I was so nervous for you. I think I vocalized how many times I was nervous for you.
Yeah.
Because I had a camera. I had my Sony camera and like this like utility fanny pack in a couple baggies. So if I did fall, it wouldn't get wet. And then I had a GoPro with like a waterproof case. I think Ron had his tucked away. But you had your like.
So I have a Sony. I have a Sony A7 III. You clipped in to my pack right here, right? I want to say that with the lens is like close to $5,000. One little slip and like I'm in it's $5,000 in the river. So
the lens is
not falling into the what's that?
The lens was
no. The camera and lens combo was
was $5,000.
About $5,000. It's a lot.
And then what's your secret for not falling in?
Putting that amount of money on your strap guarantees you won't fall in. You will not fall. I don't know why.
Dude,
I did not. I couldn't fall if I fell in.
I don't.
Lost, but it was. I didn't expect it to be that crazy. But no one's been as far as we have been up Bluff Creek, and no one certainly has gotten it on camera. So we'll see. We filmed a lot of. You filmed a lot of cool things, drone footage, and up a place where no one's been. So,
and man, it's some of the stuff we were walking through was waist deep too, and it wasn't like a babbling brook. It was like a rapid river.
Well, didn't you fall into
whiteheads all over you, just like white water all over you.
Yeah. Say that again, Ontario.
Oh, I see. Were you the one that ended up falling in, or was that?
I was the first. Actually, I was the first one to fall in. I was the first one to fall in, and then I know Kip took a couple spills. I know Ron took a few spills, but freaking Jonathan, man, he was the only one that managed to stay dry.
Yeah,
Lumber.
I sure did.
I think I guarantee you, if like Kip, Ron, and I like strapped like thousands of dollars worth of valuable equipment to we would have never fell.
Do it.
But honestly, it was like really refreshing to fall in, and we had to emergency cowboy camp. And for people who don't know what cowboy camping is, it's basically camping on the ground without a tent, just in the open surrounding. And it was such a cool area because like there's like this little overhang ridge thing we were camping at. And Kip found this really nice like flat slab of rock that he slept on.
And the river like went around it. So if he I was like kind of afraid that he'd be so asleep and roll over and just like, I don't know, make it to the Bluff Creek Bridge or something. Like
it's so funny.
Like roll into the river.
No, Kip was a huge like voice of reason for not getting anybody hurt. I think if we would have kept going, we would have gotten hurt. And I'm glad Kip was there because he saved our ligaments and bones from disastrous.
What a disaster it would have been if somebody did get hurt and they had to fly a helicopter in or something to get you guys.
Yeah, that would have been really bad.
Yeah.
No, it was overall it was a big learning experience, but in the sense of adventure, it was really cool, and I don't regret it in that sense.
We had so many meetings though. Like we had like a few Zoom meetings before that, and we were looking on Google Maps and everything, and we were like, okay, we know this is going to be really bad. It's not going to be easy. But when we actually started the hike, we had no idea. Like we knew it was going to be hard.
It looked like it had changed a little bit since Google took their picture too.
And that's what Kip was saying.
That it didn't look like it did in Google Maps, and there's no trail. There's no one's been up there. It's completely wild.
Yeah, we're bushwhacking through like overgrown shrubs and everything. We're hopping over like logs. We're hopping over boulders that are about like 5 feet tall. And then you cross a creek and it's about waist deep in some areas. And not only to make matters worse, but like in the creek, the rocks are slippery, like ice. So you're slipping and you're having to do that. And then the original plan was to get to our first location maybe in like a couple hours at the most. Yeah. Let's just say 4 hours. And it was supposed to be 3-4 miles. We took 7 hours to go barely a mile.
Yeah, we were just a tick under a mile, actually. Like just a tick under a mile.
So
and then the only there was I want to say for 90% of this hike, other than the very beginning, there was no flat spot to lay
Nope,
down. Like
not one.
if we didn't pass that one little beach. There was a beach that was just big enough for Ron, you, and I, and Kip had to sleep on that slab down the way. So it's like, other than that spot right there, we would have been sleeping some weird way on boulders or something, because that's how bad this terrain was.
It was pretty bad, and but I still look back at it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I would go over and do it again. I heard you. I think it was on I can't remember what podcast you were on talking about it, but you said I wouldn't. Even knowing what you know now, that you would probably go and do it again, right, Jonathan?
Maybe it's just
Maybe
it was a really cool.
I totally would go do it again. It'd be so fun. But
plan.
and then
I don't know. It was pretty rigorous. Like, I don't know if we were dead after that, dude. Completely dead. And
my feet hurt for like 4 days.
Yeah,
It was bad. And then so we did the hike, and then after that, I think you ended up leaving. We did Twin Lakes a couple times up there. That's actually, you can see that in the episode. And then we went to Nogo Valley. We had some fun up there. That was a lot of fun. That leads us kind of into the Southern California episode, because at that point, Ron and I were up there we were in Bluff Creek for at least almost 4 weeks. And then we go down to Southern California to my thermal site, which you've been to, Jonathan. But we happened to pick the best time to go at the same time the worst time to go. But I mean the worst time is because we were there in Southern California for California's first hurricane, 80 years? Yeah, Hurricane Hillary. And I kept talking to Glenn, aka Brown Dwarf, and my buddy Austin. I was like, there's supposed to be a hurricane. You guys still down? And we were like, yeah, let's just go do it. So we ended up camping in the middle of the hurricane anyway. And that was a lot of fun. We ended up feeling that earthquake too at the same time. And I always man, we camped in the middle of a hurricane and an earthquake and lived through it. Nothing will be able to kill us. Nothing.
Famous last words.
Yeah, famous last words.
Some stupid shit gets you.
No, it was pretty funny. Yeah, it was it's a good area to camp at. We didn't get too much there, unfortunately. SoCal Squatchers says my neighborhood. It was, yeah, definitely in the SoCal area. I love that area. I used to live in Ventura. Jonathan, you used to live in where?
I used to go to the San Gabriel Mountains all the time. I've camped and backpacked all over there.
Such a good area. And now that leads us into the upcoming episode that I have coming out on Saturday the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Should be pretty cool. Jonathan, I know you weren't there for that. I'll ask you first in Ontario. But Jonathan, what do you think of Bigfoots in Iowa?
I don't know, man. You know that for a long time I was like, there's no Bigfoots in Iowa.
Yeah.
And you look at it on a map and you zoom in and there's all this flat land. And then there's this little creek thing. And there's some trees. So I was like, I can't wrap my mind around possibility. But then again, there's a lot of people that credibly talk about it. Ontario is a big one.
Yeah, I'm in eastern Iowa. I'd say the majority of Iowa for the western and central is pretty flat, for sure. But once you start getting into eastern Iowa, into the driftless region, which essentially means that when the glaciers came through, they missed those areas, so they didn't, they didn't carve down the landscape quite like they did in other places. So it's just comprised of huge bluffs and You got the Mississippi and a lot of really large tributaries that go through eastern Iowa too. And it's I spend so much time trying to convince people that it's good habitat in Iowa. You just gotta know where to look. But that whole eastern side of the state's great.
Exactly.
There's so much food. Like the deer, when I go out to one of my local parks, I've been getting handprints and footprints and knocks and trees pushed down. I mean, whenever I go out there, I probably see 10 or 15 deer. They're everywhere. And we got a ton of the squirrels, rabbits everywhere. There's just so much food, and there is a surprising amount of water around where I think it makes really good habitat. And especially in the areas too where the cornfields do butt up to the large swatches of land, like up in Yellow River. It creates really good areas for, I think, them to get the deer, and then also to feed on the grains from the cornfield and the soybeans.
Oh, yeah.
You have the raspberries. There's fruit trees everywhere. Everyone's got livestock. There's just really an abundance of food and in territory. And it seems, I think in Iowa, and I've talked to a bunch of people about this before, is they probably move a lot more. But I think that you almost get more activity because when they're around, they're in a lot smaller of an area.
Yep.
And you're not, you're looking in 900 acres in some places, versus 500,000.
Where do
So
they move
once
to?
you
Like
know where
in a
you're
place
looking,
like
you can
Iowa?
find where the activity is happening. And that's in a lot of my places too. It's just I'm just finding reliably activity, because once you spend enough time, you really nail it down.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll get off my soapbox about Iowa.
And then what did you ask, Jonathan?
I was asking Ontario, like where do you think that, if you had to guess, like where do they frequent? Where do they move through? Because you've talked about before that they're kind of like, you think they're more like mobile, like passing through an area. They're not like hunkered down living there because the area is small, right?
Yeah.
So do you think
I think they follow the rivers, they always follow the creeks or whatever it is. But I think they do, and especially in Iowa, because the Wapsie River is a pretty big river in Iowa, and it almost all the places I've gotten activity borders the Wapsie, and there's also a historical record of reports coming out of there, 50, 60, 70 years. And I think they're just following those big water sources, and especially the Mississippi too. I think one of the main places people think of when they think of good spots is Dubuque, because it rates pretty high on like the BFRO's maps for where the most activity is, but that's follows right along the Mississippi River. So if you can find a good area of trees with a tributary or along the Mississippi, you're in good condition to, after enough time, get some pretty convincing activity.
Yeah. Is it a place where like you feel that, you go to a certain area and you're like, can be confident that you're going to be isolated for a long time? Like, is it easy to kind of like navigate through there and get lost?
Yeah, some places. I mean, like the park that I've been getting stuff out of recently that's more local to me, I've gone off trail enough to where I could probably find myself back to a trail pretty easy. But places like Dubuque, when you start, these a lot larger swaths of land, like I wouldn't want to get off trail, because you're also fighting things like there's the occasional bears in Dubuque. There's also mountain lions most places in Iowa. So, it's enough to harbor large predator animals. But yeah, if you go to the right places, you could for sure.
Nice. What's some of the best things that your favorite maybe pieces of evidence that you found in Iowa out of your area?
Yeah, so the one area that I work the most, that like I was saying was local to me, when I first started really getting into the subject, that's a friend had pointed me in that because I had given him a bunch of areas near me, and he's like, yeah, check out this one. And I did. And one of the first times I went in there, it was about late January, early February, so about this time. And there's nobody out in the woods when it's that cold, when it's only 20, 20, 30 degrees outside. And I was walking up a trail, and it was the only one in the park. And I had just stopped just to kind of calibrate and listen to what sounds were going around me. And I heard what sounded like a Louisville slugger hit a tree to my right, which would have been heading north. And then about 20 seconds later, something answered to the south on the other side of the trail. And I tried recording, and they had pretty much stopped after that. But I had gotten over a ridge down to a valley, and I was working up a different ridge, and I found what looked like a footprint that had toes sticking into the dirt. So we had cast that, and Cliff Berrickman had looked at that one too, and he liked it a lot. But while I was casting that, a tree, whether a tree fell or it got pushed over, but it was pretty coincidental that I had gotten Knox the footprint, and then that had happened, and then that same park, just 3-4 weeks ago, I pulled what very well could be a handprint that looked like it was gripping an embankment to pull itself up to a service road. That a bunch of people looked at, and we'd all talked about it here in our little group. But Cliff thought it was definitely a possibility that's what we were looking at, and
It looks like one. Certainly does.
Yeah. So stuff's there. I mean, I've gotten like the zipper sound in Dubuque while I've been hiking. I don't go off trail up there quite as much. I'm just not as familiar with it as I am here. I don't want to get myself into a sticky situation either.
Yeah.
I'm out by myself. So yeah.
Sticky situations are no bueno.
No, and even down the BFR expeditions last May in Iowa, we were down in southern Iowa, and I mean, we recorded whoops for sure. And I was with the leader, Bob Barhite. We had another vehicle behind us, and Bob was getting flustered trying to figure out the road that he wanted for us to walk. So he had just kind of whipped in this area, and we had drove up to the parking lot, turned around, and we're coming back out. And it's soon, and we had our windows up, which was the first mistake. But we pulled out onto the highway, and the truck behind us that was with us had their windows down. And as soon as we pulled out, there was this knock, knock. And they're in Iowa. I think I get way more in the winter months than I do any time in the summer, but there's substantially less people.
I think Iowa is one of those places where it wouldn't be my first place to go. If hey, you can go anywhere you want. Where are you gonna go? It'd be like the second to the last place I pick.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's not super high on anybody's list, but I think we get maybe more activity because they aren't used to a bunch of people going out and banging.
That's exactly what. Why
the virgin Sasquatch,
I think
they interact with more.
I think you have for Iowa, in my opinion, because I'm from Kansas City and I grew up in Des Moines, so my unbiased opinion, I guess you could say, is I think the Sasquatches don't necessarily stay in Iowa for a very long period of time. I think it's a place that they travel through.
Well, right. We're so close to Wisconsin and Illinois, and not that far from Minnesota, where you can, if they wanted, they could really be working their way up.
Well, I think during the summer, they're going to be working their way up to Minnesota, like the north, where it's going to be cooler. And then during the winter, they're going to be migrating down south to like the Ozarks and Arkansas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that possible though? Like, is there not?
It's a long
Are
ways.
there not like large spaces of flat land between there?
Yeah, but a lot of those flat land is cornfields, and some of those corn stalks can get up to pretty tall,
like 10 feet. Yeah.
And then if you're traveling that at night through a cornfield, I mean, you can remain pretty well hidden. What is it that Cliff always says? You own your property during the day, but at night you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. But I don't. Yeah. So that's just my kind of train of thought when I question where I think Bigfoot can and can't live. Like, just generally look at a map and you're like, oh, lots of trees right here, but none over here. I mean, And that's
You
kind of
missed my
how
soapbox,
you
Alex.
guys are slowly making me a convert to the Iowa Bigfoot believer.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get you
You're
there.
gonna do it.
'Cause
We need
I am
more, a little
passionate
bit more.
So-
about this argument.
What about Kansas? So I just got off the STM live stream and we got a question about somebody saying, "Do you think there are Bigfoot in Kansas?" And I was like, I was skeptical, but I said I played ignorance. I don't know. I genuinely have no clue.
Yeah.
What do you guys
Oh.
think about that? I want
know.
the
I was-
Midwesterners.
Ironically,
Yeah.
I was watching that episode of Finding Bigfoot earlier today. It was that Kansas episode, and I don't know. I don't know the topography that well, but it's not obviously touches Oklahoma,
Right.
and you start getting into the Ouachitas around there. So I don't know. I
Kansas
just don't know
would
much about
be-
the area.
Kansas would be the absolute last place I would ever want to go
Then
to.
Iowa, Kansas.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've heard you guys talk about Iowa, so I figured like, okay, Iowa maybe, but Kansas. Just driving through there once, I'm like, man, there's
Well,
just not a lot
it's.
going on here.
I
Good barbecue.
remember during when I was doing the interview with you for my uncovering the truth of Sasquatch thing, and there was this thing that you said there's like these pockets of these forests in these different parts of the states, and that's literally in a nutshell like Iowa, because there's these different pockets of forest in Iowa that are big enough for something that can be in, but not necessarily stay in like you would have in the
Well,
Pacific Northwest.
Well, like I was saying, Eastern Iowa, the majority of, probably 90% of it is all forested and all bluffy, and has the water all over it. So I don't know if they'd be
That's
anywhere.
interesting.
Central,
reminds me-
western.
Like of a story I heard a couple years ago when we were out in Utah. We were going to the high Uintas. It was in one of our videos. I talked about it, one of the earlier ones, where it was Eli and I. But we were in this dinosaur museum in Vernal, Utah, which is like kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's in like the desert, and they saw Bigfoot on one of our shirts or whatever. And the lady in the museum was saying, "Oh, well, my sister had a sighting along the Green River." And then we spent some time looking on Google Earth. I'm like, what? It's all desert? And then you have these little river valleys where there's tree cover all along the sides of the rivers that just, it goes from like one mountain range to the next. There's a river valley. It's like an oasis kind of thing. And apparently, and I was looking at some of the map, like Bigfoot Mapping Project, there's sightings along those green belts. And I assume other animals like deer, I don't know, maybe antelope out in Utah move along that stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, well, because you think about it, right? You look at all these places like in New Mexico or Arizona where you have these mountain ranges that are isolated and they're surrounded by desert. But there's still mountain lions and bear and deer and all those animals in those areas. How did they get there? Right? Have
Yeah.
they just been there forever? Or did they somehow get there? I mean, maybe you have a little bit of that going on, but I do find that interesting. Yeah, Mike Casey says he's been to the Green River in Utah. Yeah, it's like, I was looking at it, I was shocked that it was as green as it was, and then you just go 100 feet up the cliff and you're basically in like a dry, high desert environment. So it's interesting.
Well, yeah, before you joined, we were talking about, I was making my case for Iowa, and just that part next to me that I've been pulling stuff out of, every single time I go, I see 15, 20 deer
That's wild.
everywhere, because there's so much, there's enough plant life and everything too, but we have the cornfields that they just, they'll eat during the year, but then as soon as it gets harvested, it's just littered with deer. And I think the Sasquatches target those areas right between the wooded spots and where it butts up to the cornfields.
Well,
Yeah,
I know Ron was kind of like skeptical of Iowa, and then when he got there that first time, he was like, "This
Leaders.
place is actually pretty good."
Even Florida, I was skeptical of Florida till I went there. I'm like, there's not that much real wilderness out there. But we were just talking about this too, because like where I filmed that thermal footage, which I kind of debunked in my video, that my most recent video, that area of Anderson County, Kentucky, it's like not what you'd expect. It reminded me a lot of like Eastern Ohio, where there's a lot of that Bigfoot history out of, and like Robert W. Morgan and Don Keating, people focused on that Sasquatch Triangle area, where it's not like real wilderness, but you have these patches of green and forest that are next to cornfields, next to farms, where there's a lot of people. But like when I was in Minerva, Ohio, with like Seth and them, the amount of deer that we saw out there was crazy. I got surrounded by coyotes in a tree stand. This area of Kentucky I was in, there's a insane amount of deer out there. I couldn't believe it. And then because you look at it on Google Earth and you're like, there's no way. And then you actually go there and you're like, oh, wow. You go up this ridge and it's all just woods back here. You fly the drone around, it's all woods. So I guess I just haven't been to Iowa other than driving through. So I I mean, when you've been to like a place like Alaska or Northeast or some like Bluff Creek, it's like
You get
it's
desensitized a little
yeah,
bit.
you're like, oh, it's you kind of take it for granted. But I guess if these things were in some of these areas, they'd have to maneuver a lot more than they maybe would in like a place like Bluff Creek.
What were you going to say, Jonathan?
No, I was just gonna say, it's like it's actually a great opportunity if you think about it. Like Ontario was saying, well, first you said that it's not in your top whatever places to go to, and it's one of the last places you'd go to. But what you have is a smaller amount of land to have to focus on. Smaller amount of land to cover with game trail cameras and audio recorders. And if these things are really passing through there, well, then your probability is probably much, much higher than it is for, like, let's say the Olympic Peninsula or Bluff Creek, where it's just like, it's like
Alaska. Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to stay isolated.
Well, I would say maybe this is a bad, I don't know, comparison, but I think the amount of areas that you can get to in Iowa where people don't go squatching because they overlook it is about the same accessible areas that you can get to in the PNW, but a lot more people get there to look for Bigfoot because that's where they would go to look for Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah,
And
I don't
so-
think anybody else is working the areas that I've been.
And so, like,
working
yeah,
in Iowa.
in Iowa, you're like, oh, Bigfoot in Iowa? No way.
It's easy
And
to
so-
scoff at.
Yeah, and so, and then I think because of that reason, people scoff at it, and you can get to these places, you're going to have a higher chance of probably hearing something.
Yeah.
Something's there to be heard. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know the areas enough. The Midwest is very bare on my map. I mean, I'd love to go like Minnesota, Wisconsin. I know there's plenty of good habitat probably up there. I mean, there's moose up there. There's tons of big critters, and especially like even the the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I mean, you hear stuff out of there for
Get a lot
years.
of
And
stuff out there, yeah.
millions of acres of national forest, and that connects to Canada. You've got Ontario right there, and there's nothing but woods up there, pretty much, barely any people. So, I don't think they would migrate from way up there down to like Iowa or something. Maybe they would. I don't know, but
if you're a Bigfoot, like, what a savage way to live life. Like, you have the entire Pacific Northwest, all of Canada, but it's like, no, I'm going to hang out in Iowa.
I guess if you're born there, it's like you don't have a choice.
Chasing me around, and
So have you guys ever heard any reports from Lake Tahoe?
Jonathan, I feel like Jonathan would be the one to know.
Tahoe.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's this a friend of mine named Matt, and he has a channel called Lead Me Outdoors. And if you go there, he has a lot of backpacking videos. And one of his videos is from Bridgeport. That's kind of near the Tahoe area, in the Eastern Sierras. He had him and another guy had something strange happen, and something kept coming around camp. They heard some sounds, and
Awesome.
another place near Tahoe is Plumas National Forest, which is just, I think, north of it. And there's plenty of stuff there, from a guy that claims he shot two of them. There's thermal footage from Barcatino, and I had a sighting there in 2015, but I've never been to actual Tahoe. But anyway, that's what I know about the surrounding areas.
This comment's nice. It's so true, though. When you never see a Sasquatch when you're looking for them. It's just one of those things.
They know you're
True.
looking. Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like shopping on the internet. When you're looking for something, you can never find it. But when you're not looking for something, it always pops up
You're
in your feed.
unprepared and you don't have your
Yeah.
recorder going, or
Like Brent, shoes.
I mean,
you
just
want.
think about that time. I always think about this one, Tate, when we were out with Ron and everybody out in Mount Hood. We stayed at that place near where Ron got that recording.
Oh yeah,
Like that night, I swear, because a couple of us were sleeping in our tents outside. I think you and Ron were in your cars. But like we heard knocks and whoops, and like I was independently woken up by that noise.
Yeah.
As like Eli and this other guy Sam, and then we go to check the recorder, and it's been dead the whole night. We're like, dude, are you serious? Like, I was like, I still think about that. I'm like, dude, we legit had like it was crazy. I mean, it sounded like real whoops and knocks, and I spent like an hour just scouring the woods that morning, just looking for anything. But I mean, it was so dense.
I really don't doubt there was knocks at all. Like I 100% believe you guys because the night before we were there, so I'm not going to say the actual name of the lake, but Ron dubbed it Melody Camp.
Yeah.
But we weren't too far
we
from
went
there. Yeah, we weren't too far from there as the crow flies, And so when we were camping, because Ron got the audio that night, and it sounded just like what Connor recorded, the kind of that melodic kind of singing house thing.
Yep.
And then it was the next night we were all there at this spot, and we had like Lego Star Wars on a projector going, and then we were hearing some weird kind of things coming in around us,
Like movement in the woods, yeah.
and then later that night you guys get some knocks.
Well, because like I heard it and it woke me up, and it wasn't like I woke up like, oh my god, but I was woken up every once in a while and I'd be like, that sounds weird. I'm like, oh, we'll check the audio, and I was so confident in that. Oh, we've got the audio, awesome, And then first thing that happens, I get out of the tent, and Eli and his buddy are like, did you hear that stuff? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm glad I'm not the only one. And so just a story, because we have nothing to substantiate it, so it sucks. But that happens a lot in this topic, and run more than one audio recorder. That's the moral of the story.
For sure. Well, we ran into that too at that second Iowa episode when we were all together, and we were just having weird stuff happen all night, and I was hearing car doors closing and just things running around outside the camp, and I was like, well, I got a recorder going here. Jeremiah's got a recorder going there, but then Jeremiah's recorder's not working.
Then Ron had like 4 of them going.
Ron was like it was like his was like way down the other side of where this stuff was happening. And I don't really get freaked out at night when I'm bigfooting, and I've always slept really well when I'm in my car, but I was up staring at the ceiling of my car most of that night, just because it's just weird stuff happening. I think we all got out the next morning and we're like, did you guys hear that last night? So I think I had texted Tate, and Jeremiah was like, you guys hear these car door sounds? And it was just weird.
I thought I heard something. What time did we hear those? What time did we hear the strange stuff moving around camp, Alex, in Portland? And then what time did you guys hear the knocks? We heard the stuff coming around camp maybe around like 6 o'clock, 7.
It was, I don't know, no, I think it was dark by the time, because we did a big hike to this lake, and we spent almost till after sundown just scouring every inch of this lake bed for footprints. I mean, we were looking everywhere, and it's in the episode. Bigfoot Mountain is the name of the episode. But I don't know. I can't tell you what time those noises happened. It could have been 4 in the morning, could have been 3, could have been 5. I don't remember. We probably woke up around 7 or 8 anyway. I would wake up, and I only remember waking up once, and I thought to myself, oh, I can't wait to check the audio. And then I'd go back to sleep because I wouldn't hear anything else. And then it's like,
dead.
Yeah. And because we go over to the chair, I remember Eli had it was like a Zoom big one, and he put it in the chair, and we go to play the recording, and there's like 3 seconds recorded on it, and then it just stops.
I have the funniest picture. I have the funniest picture of Eli still. We're all like hanging out.
Entire thing of tape.
Yeah, we're all hanging out underneath the Easy Up. I think like Sam's eating like some macaroni, and I just like start tape. I use a whole roll of not electrical tape, but painter's tape. I just start rolling around Eli from head to toe. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
They called you Tape Hieronymus.
Pretty much.
I do want to play like a 20-second. Yeah. Oh, you have the video.
There you go.
Dang. You're all casual.
That's hilarious. I do want to play a 20-second clip from the new Iowa episode that's coming out on Saturday. I keep wanting to say Friday, but it's Saturday. So hopefully it'll let me play it just fine. So let's do it.
On this trip back to Iowa, Tate and Ron are joined by 2 other researchers, Jeremiah Byron and Ontario Richardson. And with hopes that something could be in the area, the group gets ready as darkness.
It's dumb. It stopped again. I hate it.
Look good so far.
Well, I mean, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is who was there. That's when we'll gather.
That's all you're getting. That's it. Jeez. Oh man. So we're up.
A good time.
So before we end, I know We're kind of just talking about the SABE stuff. But everybody on here, where can people follow you, find you if they want to keep up to date with what you're doing?
Western Bigfoot Exploration on YouTube. And I failed an export right now for getting this Paul Freeman film site video out. But now I know I'm going to fix it. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm confident it'll be tomorrow on my channel. You'll see a video for my visit to the Paul Freeman film site.
You know, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, most active on Instagram, but under Ontario's and Midwest Bigfoot. I think if you just type in Midwest Bigfoot, it'll pull you up to there. But that's all I'm on for now. But usually Instagram's the best place to keep current on what I'm doing.
Awesome sauce,
Don't
Alex.
follow me. I don't have anything to say.
Just plug it now.
I'm kidding. Yeah, you can check out my stuff on Small Town Monsters. Also, I'm on Instagram. My name is spelled there, Alex Pedikov. You could follow me there. I guess I'm active there. Facebook too, same thing.
And then you guys, if you're watching, this is my channel, so subscribe and hopefully you like the content I'm putting out. That's why I'm putting it out. Mainly for me, but partly for you.
That's very on brand for you, Tate.
It really is. But thank you guys for joining me tonight. Everybody watching in the chat, thank you for joining, and everybody have a great night.
Yeah, see you guys. Bye.
Peace.